Hi, I'm Steve McCord, Cattaraugus County Director of Veteran Services, and this is Our Veterans, Their Stories, preserving our heroes' stories, one story at a time.
I was drafted in December of '67, and I went in February of '68.
Why didn't you cut and run?
No, I never thought of that. Not at all, you know.
Why?
Well, you know, I was brought up, you know, we spent every Saturday afternoon watching, you know, double features at the theaters down in Olean, and they were all war movies, so we were pumped all our life for that. But on the other hand, it was like, you know, I always thought at the time, I had no clue what was, you know, going on in Vietnam. I didn't know. I didn't pay any attention to the news or anything like that. And I thought, well, maybe we're always the good guys. Maybe it was worth, you know, fighting for. Maybe it was. I do remember thinking, well, I'll go over and find out if, in fact, I'm sent. Like I said, I didn't watch the news. I was a kid, you know. I was, you know, doing what kids do. You know, had a band, you know.
Did your dad serve?
He did not. My dad had polio and wasn't able to. But my uncles did. My grandfather, World War I. Yeah, they went to World War II, uncles.
So your family was pro-Vietnam?
They were, at the time, yes. At the time, as I recall, most of America was behind the war. Late 67, early 68, I think. Although I've read where, you know, that was my impression. That might not have been right.
Can you explain the difference between the original draft and then the lottery, when that all occurred?
Well, I can only explain my situation.
Yeah.
In my situation, if you went to college, you got a deferment. And I did go to school for 1 year, but I didn't apply myself, and ended up going part-time to Bonaventure to make up a few grades. And I was drafted out of. I lost my deferment, 1A deferment. Instead of full-time, I was a part-time student, and the part-time student is available for the draft. And I thought I could sneak through. It's not like it was a big deal, I think, you know, but didn't make it. There were only two options if you were drafted. Go to Canada, or go to jail. And I didn't consider either one. And you know, a big part of it was what would I tell my kids? You know, what did you do in the war, Dad? Well, you know, I went to jail for 4. I went to Canada and snuck. No, I never considered that. And it's funny because I told my kids when they had grown up a little bit more about that. Like, what would I say to you guys when you asked me about? And they'd said, we don't care. You didn't have to go. I had a friend in basic training. Can I mention his name? Or
First name, yeah, sure.
Archie, and we were good friends. There were 3 of us, Rod Peterson from Steenberg, myself, and Archie. And, you know, we were close all the way through basic training. And Rod and I got our orders to go to Fort Polk, which was Infantry, Vietnam. And Archie was going to go to be a clerk or something like that. He wasn't going to go to Vietnam. And I'm not sure exactly when he left, if it was after advanced training. It may have been after the advanced training, because I knew he wasn't going to go to Vietnam. but he went to Canada anyway. And I, you know, to tell you the truth, I respected him for it. You know, if you feel that deeply, because I told my brother, you know, actually I was in Vietnam when I told him, I said, join the Navy. But I never considered joining the Navy. You know, I'm not a good swimmer. So, so it was the Army for me. Although, no, I'm not going to volunteer for it. But if you draft me, okay, we'll see what happens. Although we had spent, you know, 2 months in Louisiana, which really was, you know, hot and humid. It didn't quite compare to Vietnam, where it took me a long time to get acclimated to that, to the heat and the humidity. And it's really, I'm always telling my wife or kids or grandkids, you know, on a hot day around here, it's not Vietnam. But it was, where I was located was in the middle of no place. We were on the edge of the mountains and the flatlands. The area that we operated in, we had 2 fire support bases. LZ Center that had artillery, mortars, and a company of infantry defending it, and LZ East that had mortars and a platoon. So it was better to defend the place. But standing on LZ East, we could look east and barely, just barely on a good day, see the South China Sea. And, you know, we would look west, north and west, and nothing but, you know, mountains. And it was beautiful. Everything was green. But it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Was it anywhere near Marble Mountain?
You know, if we looked east, we could see the South China Sea. If we looked northwest, we saw a ridgeline that I think was Marble Mountain, because on the other side was Da Nang. We could see the lights of Da Nang. When I was in the field, in the area that I had just described, was one step up from caveman. They would have, and there were no men out there. It was a free fire zone. If they were out there, you could shoot them. There were no men. There were mama-sans, usually older grandmas, sometimes kids. That was it. And they had a hut with a thatched roof, lucky if they had a wall, hard clay floor, and an urn in the corner boiling something. That was it.
Free fire zone. You're the first one that's ever mentioned it. What is it?
Well, it's an area, and I believe, my understanding of it is that what they tried to do, the military would try to do, is they would come to these, and they weren't villages that I saw. They were just huts, you know. You'd be on patrol and you'd come across one where they tried to take these people out and put them in a section where they would be safe. Not their home, but someplace else. So that, I mean, we were constantly patrolling in the area. And the reason we were patrolling was to keep the NVA from getting to targets in the flatlands, really. Tam Kee and Chu Lai and north at Da Nang. If we were out there, you don't want somebody that was innocent to be in the way.
What do you think the United States was trying to accomplish?
That's a good question. I mean, okay, so when I got there July of '68. It had been 6 months after the Tet Offensive. And I didn't know anything about the Tet Offensive at the time, you know, what it was about or anything, but I knew that everything seemed pretty good. The problems we had were basically booby traps, maybe a little bit of problems at night with sappers trying to get in. Nothing large scale, small scale stuff, although, you know, that wasn't that much fun, but things were relatively safe. a year later, when I was getting ready to leave, I thought we were losing the war.
Why?
Why? Well, you know, I think part of, if you talk about strategy, strategy depends on your perspective. Because I think back in October when we heard that the bombing in the Ho Chi Minh Trail was going to be stopped. I think they stopped bombing up north too. And I don't know how much the peace movement had to do with that being stopped, but we knew what was going to happen. Things were going to get worse. That was in October of '68, and by January, February '69, things changed totally in our area.
In what way?
You know, it got worse. It was bad. It was bad, and it was bad until I left in July, and it got worse.
Okay, so you're saying that as long as you were bombing the north, it kept them there, or?
Made things worse when they stopped. You know, it did. I think at Tet, reading about the Tet offensive in January, February of '68, 6 months before I got there, that was actually a tremendous victory for the United States. But in the United States, they looked at it as a defeat, thinking, how could they do that? How could they possibly go into, where was it, Way, and control the city? How could they do that? It was taken as a defeat in the United States, although it was a victory.
What do you think? What do you think, Lieutenant Calley, and what do you think that did for the view of the war here in the United States?
Well, it gave the impression that a lot of it was like that, and certainly wasn't.
So you're saying that what he did was not?
No. The unit I was with, I because you had mentioned at the music store when the veterans get to be 60, 65, they get more time. They start thinking about, and some of them were thinking about some of the things that they did. I don't have a problem. I never did anything that I was always, at least, what am I trying to say? I didn't do anything
Nothing you were
that,
ashamed of.
nothing to be ashamed of, really, nothing.
Okay, here's a tough one. What's it like to firefight?
Well, that's another good question, because I was never in a good one. I was never in a good firefight. Hit booby traps. I was at the end of the line when there was a firefight. It's like, and one time there was a sapper attack on our base camp, and it was pretty bad. But we were on, like, it was like we were surrounded, but they weren't paying any attention to us. There was a lot going on around us. A lot. It was crazy. It was like a movie. It really was. Although, I guess I was fortunate, They didn't.
How did you get shot?
I didn't get shot.
I thought you had a Purple Heart.
I do have a Purple Heart. And this was actually in September. I was out in the field for about a month. And we were just on patrol. We were going to a night position. And a small hill, just a small hill, and I was still trying to get in shape carrying what I was carrying. I was carrying way too much. Like I said, it took me a long time to get used to carrying that in that heat and humidity. And it was still, I had only been out there about a month. But anyway, our squad went up over the hill, second squad went to the left, third squad on this side of the hill. So we had 3 squads on top of the hill right? The fourth squad came up, they started going to this side. I was talking to two friends of mine on the trail leading to the far side, and I had turned and went back to my rucksack, bent over it when they hit it was a mortar round that they hit. So, and I went like this, and I had just a small, I'm the least wounded Vietnam veteran. I went like this, and you could see a small red blob of blood,
Yeah.
which I just wrapped my towel around it. But my two buddies that I had just been talking to, one was hit here, and I helped bandage him, and another buddy was hit here, and by the time I got over there, he had already had some plastic put on himself, and we had 25 guys in the platoon, and 11 were wounded in that because of everybody was almost on the hill.
How'd you get along with the black and the white situation? Was that something that was an issue?
No, not with me. Not with them. Out in the field, we got along very well. It was, I think maybe a little bit later, maybe in 1970, it might have gotten worse because drugs started to become bigger in the rear at the bigger base camps, which I just never hit one of them bigger base camps. For my tour, I was primarily in the field or at a smaller base camp.
So you were like 30 days in the field, helicopter?
No. We were kind of always in the field. We'd go up on LZ East or LZ Center. We'd spend a week maybe up there guarding the perimeter. At night, you could have problems. And then we'd spend a week or 10 days in the field patrolling, and then keep that rotation going. Patrol back to the base camp. But the base camp was still in the middle of no place. It's not like you had R&R or anything.
Agent Orange, anything? Did it affect you?
Well,
Did you,
I know we went through areas that had been defoliated. Because I can remember saying to one of my buddies, "Where are we?" He says, "Geez, we were just here 2 weeks ago." And it didn't look completely different, it just didn't look the same. But no, I don't think it was used heavily where I was.
What was the Viet Cong like?
Pain in the butt, They were like, they weren't as trained as well as the North Vietnamese. North Vietnamese was probably the finest infantry in the world at the time. I mean, think about it. In 1946, when actually Ho Chi Minh wanted to have Vietnam as a freed country, an independent country, the United States said, "Go back to France." He didn't want to be communist. He just wanted a free country. Go back to France. France fought 9 years over there. 9 years, same as us. They kicked France out, and then, well, Viet Cong, one thing that I did read about the Viet Cong, because they're originally known as the Viet Minh, and because they fought against the French. They'd come up from the south, they helped defeat the French. They were heroes in the country. And when the United States found that out, they had to change the name. They had to change the name. They couldn't call these guys were heroes in their country. But now they were going against the United States. That's where they became the Viet Cong. We didn't see them we saw them in small groups, trying to attack the hill. You know, they harassed quite a bit, you know, coming up one side, trying to get up one side, trying to get up another side. But they were involved in the last. I was at LZ Baldy when I think there may have been a company or maybe two of them that were sappers, and they got in the perimeter. So it's not like they were clowns, you know. They could be trouble, but with the NVA, you just didn't want to, you know, you don't want to meet up with them guys because they brought everything. And that's when, like I said, the area I was in, when I left, it got bad.
So you mentioned the drug issue. See, now I thought the drug issue started probably, you know, like in the, you know, as early as possible and went all the way through. So, you know, how was the, you know, how did you see anything, or were you gone by then when the drug issue really?
I was gone by then. It was no issue. It was no, you know, I didn't see anybody, you know, not go out in the field or whatever. No, it really wasn't. And I wasn't in the rear, like at a division base camp. It may have been a problem. I don't know. It may have been. I didn't see it. I didn't hear about it. We all love coming home, but it was coming home was like we were a little skeptical because it seemed so crazy back here at the time, you know, with like, and I don't believe I wore my uniform. You know, I dressed as a civilian when I traveled. So they didn't know I was military. And when I got home, probably you know, it was curious because I remember friends coming up to me and saying, "Where you been?" It was like, you know, I never had that problem. Nobody ever, you know, one way or the other. Well, actually, even it started when I was in basic training and AIT when Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy got shot, and they said, "Be ready, we might have to go," you know. You know, try to make the streets of America safe, but probably the demonstrations that were going on, it just seemed, not that we knew like a whole lot that was going on in the United States. I don't know if we paid that much attention because it was almost like bad luck to think about, you know. We didn't hear that much about that. But I don't know, at least I viewed America as like kind of a, well, I don't think we learned a thing. Didn't learn anything. I mean, we just quit the last war that was, you know, we lost that one too, didn't we? I mean, I don't know what winning and losing, I know what losing means, but it doesn't seem like we can win a war anymore. Not that even, I think probably an important thing is because, you know, going into this, I was thinking, well, I'll find out, okay? I'll find out. And I'll just tell you one story. What I thought of the whole experience, this goes back to probably a different question, but just one war story, I guess. And this was in a valley called AK Valley, AK-47, so we knew it was bad going in there. And it was a beautiful place. And we had sent out a patrol, and they weren't gone 10 minutes and we could hear firing. So I joined another bunch of guys, squad, and we went down to see what happened. And there was a clearing with a hooch up there, and evidently they had seen an NVA soldier, and they got into a little bit of a firefight, and a friend of mine, Red, who was, he was a new guy too. He had an M79 grenade launcher that he had shot, but it hit a tree or a limb or something and exploded, wounded him. And I'll tell you, it didn't take us 10 minutes to get down there, but they already had medevaced him. And I was standing on the trail leading up to the hut, and there was a 12-year-old that was caught in the crossfire. And he was dead. And what I got out of that was, it seemed like, and this came later, is that's kind of summed up the war to me. You know, American soldier, wounded, went home. NVA got away. And a civilian, 10 or a 12-year-old kid, was killed. And I'm thinking, like I said before, I didn't know anything about it when I went there. I'll find out. Well, I found out then. You know, it didn't matter if he was a capitalist, Democrat, Republican, whatever, communist. It'd be better to be alive than dead. And right there, it was like, and that was early. After reading about the war, things before the war, I changed my views, definitely. You know, if it had happened now, same thing, I wish I had the courage not to go.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
It was totally wrong. The war was totally wrong. They wanted to be a free country. And we told them to go to hell. They just fighting for independence. That's all they wanted.